Hello guys, my name is Bilal Salau, expert storyteller coming at you from Way Media Studios. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's jump into today's class. It's super exciting. I'm so vibed up. So let's go. I'll wait for you. Go grab your book and your pen. So welcome to today's class. This class was inspired by a friend who is in the business space, really amazing person, and he called me this week and was talking to me about how that he was having writer's block. He couldn't put down stuff on paper. He had this proposal thing he was supposed to come up with, or article-like kind of thing, and he was just struggling because this is corporate writing, this is business writing, and I know that's a space that most of you guys are in. Writing for grants, writing for proposals, writing for all kinds of stuff, right? So today, I was inspired by his question. I delivered the answer over the phone, but today I just decided that, look, I'm going to do a class on that question, and so that, he doesn't just get to benefit, but you also get to benefit, because I think it's really, really cool. So let's jump into today's class and let's go. Today's class is called Think Stories, Write Stories. Thinking stories and writing stories. So basically, it's the idea of how that you can write corporately by thinking in stories. And this is a big struggle for business people, especially because they don't know how they can join corporate writing with storytelling. But today I'm going to crush that idea and you become a master at this. So basically, I'm going to teach you a simple strategy that you can use anytime you like, so that you can use that strategy to think in stories. Now, if you're able to use that strategy properly, every time you have the opportunity to write, and you can do this as an example or take it as a task, every time you have the opportunity to write, you'll be able to write in stories, okay? And when I say write in stories, what that simply means is the idea of you writing something that is compelling, writing something that is moving, writing something that has journey, progression, writing something that can get people to take action. And that's truly what everybody in the business space wants, right? So this is writing for businesses. This is a masterclass, in fact. So let's go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to talk to you about, the first strategy that you need to consider. So I'm going to talk to you about 5 strategies, okay? So very simple. Get your book, man. Get your book. Write this down. Number 1, purpose, okay? That's what I'm going to talk to you about. So what is purpose and why do you have to think in purpose? Now, the thing about purpose is that purpose is like the single most important thing about storytelling. Whenever you start to think in stories, or whenever any story is told, there must be purpose. If there's no purpose, there's no story. Story comes with purpose, purpose comes with story. They go hand in hand. If your story has no purpose, your story is going to do nothing for you. And that's the mistake many people make when they go into corporate writing. They don't have a purpose for why they are writing, or even if they do, it's not properly defined. And along the line, as they write, they lose out on the purpose, and they're going from A to Z to P to Pluto to Jupiter and Venus and all. Their readers get tired and just start skimming through. But if you have purpose, it's going to really, really help you. So how do you implement purpose into your writing? So I have a really, really simple strategy for how you can do this. So this is called the keywords strategy. I learned this strategy from Muse Storytelling. Some people who I really, really love, they teach storytelling, and you can check them out if you want. But their strategy about finding purpose or defining purpose is basically using the keyword style. And the keyword style basically means this. So on your book right now, write number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, define your purpose in a sentence. So let me give an example. So I want to write an article for my blog. Okay, for example, I'm a business person. I want to write an article for my blog. I want to write about something that my business is presently doing. And the reason I want to write this is so that I can get my audience to understand the intricacies of the processes within our business. Okay, so now the purpose is what? I want to be able to help my audience understand the intricacies of what's happening within my business. That's the purpose defined. So now the idea for how to define this keyword so that it is strong in your brain is using the keyword style. The keyword style is like a fence. You fence your brain around it so that you can really use that fence to write, so that you're not going all over the place. So you write so keywords like this. Write 5 words that really make sense for why you want to write that article. So for me, I could use different ways, but I could say, number 1, intricacies, right? Number 2, if I want to write for my audience who are youths, I could write youths. Do you understand? I could write, so just look for 5 words within your purpose circumference and write those 5 words down. So those 5 words would identify or represent your purpose. So every time you are writing, you are always, and 5 words is really easy. It's really easy to memorize. So once you have those 5 words, you know that you're never going to lose out on those 5 words, and those 5 words will represent your boundaries for which you should write through. Anything that goes outside those 5 words, don't write about it. It's not going to help you deliver your purpose. And that's how you can filter out stuff, because as business people, I know that you have so much to say, but I mean, if you have a purpose, you'd say things properly. So let's go to the next thing. I hope that's probably done. I mean, like, you understand what purpose is and how to use it as a strategy. So purpose is just about defining what you want to write, why you want to write it, why you want to write it, and then putting that into 5 keywords. Now, so let's jump to the second strategy for how you can start to think in stories. So the second strategy today is going to be empathy. So what is empathy? So empathy can be defined in a number of ways, but in terms of storytelling, empathy is the idea of thinking about who you are writing for and how that person is going to receive the message. Do you understand? Now, empathy is about putting yourself in the shoes of your audience. Do you understand? Now, once you're thinking in empathy, it empowers you to be able to, every time you put pen on paper and you're writing, or you put hands on your keyboard and you're writing, empathy allows you visualize the person that you're writing for, and you write to that person. Empathy is the idea of having of defining a particular person that you're writing for. So if you're writing for women who are in their second trimester, do you understand? If you're writing for women in that category, you know how they feel. You know, you're already embodying their feelings, their emotions at that particular time. So when you're writing for them, it gives you more power. It gives you more, the words you even use will be defined by empathy. The kind of grammatical structure will be defined by empathy. Look, if you're a business and you're writing for kids, for example, right? Look, if you're writing for kids and you have empathy, you won't be using gigantic words. You'll be using really cool, simple words that children like. If you're writing to investors, you'll be using the words that investors like, or the kind of words that investors see every day. And all this can be done because you have empathy. So empathy is just basically the idea of having or building a frame of the person that you're writing for. So how can you do this, right? So before you start writing again, and all these things you have to do before you write so that you don't have writer's block like my friend. Do you understand? Do this before you write. It's really a good process for thinking in stories. So now, before you write, just ask yourself, okay, so empathy, just write empathy like a heading, underline it, and define the person that you're writing for. Use a few words. Oh, I'm writing for this social type of person. This is how they feel. This is how they think. This is what I want them to do. Just as much as you can write about the person, just put it down. The moment you write it, you can visualize it. So that's empathy. Next thing. Relatability. Everybody knows this one. Relatability is like number 2 after storytelling. If you're writing a story that is not relatable, then for God's sake, nobody's going to get it, right? So when you want to write a story, always think relatability. How can this story relate? How can the person I'm writing this story to relate to the story? So you always have to put that in mind. So basically, a simple example for this is, again, business copywriting. If I'm writing in corporate space, I want to think about relatability in terms of, okay, I'm writing for investment, or I'm writing for grant or something like that. How can I use relatability? So you're writing to these particular people. You used empathy to know this kind of particular people. And then by relatability, you know the kind of things that they might relate to. So you are using those kind of words. You're using those kind of, okay, so in a structured statement, you want to talk about problem, solution, needs. You want to talk about executive summary, all those kind of stuff, right? So you know that it relates to those kind of terms. So you use those terms in your writing. That's relatability. If a particular audience that you've defined using empathy relates to corporate kind of documents, if you want to write for them, don't go writing storybooks. Write with relatability. Relatability helps you define the kind of structures you put into your writing. That's what relatability truly is about when it comes to writing in the corporate space. So guys, I hope you've gotten that one. Always thinking relatability, and that's something that should help you think in stories. Now let's go to the 4th one, authenticity. What is authenticity? So authenticity basically is the idea of being authentic. Yeah, simple as that. So how can you be authentic? So I'm going to explain this, so listen and pay attention. Authenticity is super important in storytelling because stories that are not authentic are are not trustworthy stories. Now, authenticity increases trust. Authenticity increases likability. Authenticity increases compulsion. Authenticity increases everything. It even increases relatability. Now, authenticity is the idea, or rather, let me just teach you how you can do this. If you want your stories to be authentic, if you want your writings to be authentic, you have to have perspective. Perspective is one thing that can really bring you more authenticity. And there are a number of ways that you can bring authenticity to your story, but perspective is one way that you can go about that. Now, what is perspective, right? So if you're writing a story and your story does not have perspective, then your story lacks authenticity. So that's already known. So how do you bring authenticity to your story? So again, another example. Let's say I'm writing to invite somebody to come and speak in my conference, okay? And I want to write with authenticity. Now, if you just write a regular email or write a regular letter that just says, "Hi there, Mr. John, we're pleased to invite you for blah, blah, blah conference 2021. It's going to be a 5-day conference and we'll be really, really glad to have you around. Your hotel room has been booked. Below you find the card, blah, blah, blah." Basic, right? But if you want to write with authenticity by thinking in stories and writing in stories, you have to have perspective. So what is perspective? Now, you're writing to Mr. John. What perspective does that give you? Yours. You are the one writing. So if you want to make that personal enough, you could say something like, "Hi, Mr. John. I know we haven't met. My name is Frank, comma," right? Thank you very much for accepting my letters. Thank you very much for accepting my letter very swiftly. Now you see, because you're writing with perspective, there is a personality to it. There is authenticity to it. There is character to it. Now, John on the other side, who's going to be receiving your email, is going to be reading it with your perspective. And that means your email can be trusted. And so that's the power of perspective. So next time you're writing for corporate stuff, put perspective into it. Put it from your perspective. You're going to write about farmers, and the farmers are your farmers. Write from your perspective of the farmers. Don't write about the farmers from the perspective of the company. Write it from yours. That's more authentic. You could write it from the perspective of the company, but look, you're losing down on perspective. And finally, let's talk about plot. Plot is the last thing that you have to consider when you want to think in stories. Every story has a plot. If you're not thinking in plot, that means you're not thinking in stories. So what is plot? Plot is the idea of thinking in structures. So every story has a beginning, middle, and an ending. So when you're writing in the corporate space, you also have to think about structure. You want to have beginning, middle, and ending. And once you have this in mind, you'll be able to just take your pen, your book, write beginning, middle, ending, define what you want your beginning to be, define what you want your middle to be, and what you want your ending to be. And so basically that's it. So there's another class that we might do extensively on each of these things, but because this is so broad, and as you can see, I'm really talking fast, and so that means that there's so much to say, but I have to keep this video within time. But yeah, empathy is one thing that is broad alone. Authenticity is broad on its own. Purpose is broad on its own. All these things are really broad on their own, and it will take some time to master. But look, this is a very simple concept. Remember these 5 things: purpose, empathy, relatability, authenticity, and plot every time you want to write. Once you think in those 5 things, you'll be able to write in those 5 things. So guys, that's the end of today's class. I'm super excited to be here again. See you next week.